Well, hello everybody. I think this is it. I think we have our... Please join me in welcoming this extraordinary team of makers. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Lee Lewis. I'm the artistic director here at Queensland Theatre, typically overexcited on a night like this. We are going to keep our masks on in accordance with the request from QPAC. Mostly it's about keeping these fine people safe so that they can continue to go on stage. It's been a tricky time. And we want to make sure that everybody who has booked a ticket to see this can see their extraordinary performances. So I'm going to continue to talk through this. We're going to jump in and have some questions about this group and about the play and the beginning of the year. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us for the beginning of the year. 2022 is going to be amazing. I'm not sure how, but we'll all make it so together. Yeah. And thank you for joining us on the lands of the Yagara and the Turrbal people. Stories have been told on these lands for tens of thousands of years, and I'm always conscious when we're bringing in a classic from another country that it's a real privilege to share stories across lands, across continents. And with this beautiful team, we're actually pulling people from across the whole country. I'm going to get them all to introduce themselves, but I'm going to start with the magnificent Jimmy Barney, who hails from up Torres Strait Way. Here we go. You can take that.
Okay. Hi everyone. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So Jimmy Barney, I play George in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and very excited to present this here. We've been all over the country. We've been, well, not really all over the country, but we've been to Sydney and Adelaide. Yeah. It's been, it's been a journey, but it's been a wonderful ride. So yeah, I'll hand it over.
Hello, I'm Susan Pryor. I play Martha, and I got a bit displaced in the COVID era, so I've been everywhere. I originally sort of was in Sydney, then I got caught in Adelaide, and now I'm sort of just going where the work is going. So.
Hi, I'm Anthony Nicola. I'm the resident director at State Theatre Company of South Australia, and I'm the associate director on this production of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Now, the director, Margaret Harvey, can't be with us tonight, so Anthony's standing in her place and is in charge of launching this great ship, but she's not able to be here. Margaret is one of the reasons, as a Queensland artist, when there was the chance to have this work in the Queensland Theatre season, that I jumped at the possibility. She's one of our most extraordinary artists. She's gone out and built a huge career around the country. And the thought of her putting her directorial stamp on one of the great classics was something that I couldn't resist. So thank you for making sure that this can happen with all the grace and intelligence that she intended, Anthony. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Juanita Navas-Wing. I play Honey in the play. This one's wife.
Hi, my name is Rashidi Edward, and I play Nick, who is Honey's husband. And like the rest of my fellow cast, I've mentioned that it's been fun traveling around the country.
Hello, I'm Benjamin Mazza. I am understudying both Nick and George. Understudy, aka COVID contingency plan. So, yeah, just to give the show the longevity it deserves. So, thank you.
Hi, my name's Nigel Levings. I'm the lighting designer for the production, and I'll probably, since our set designer Elsa Patterson's not here, if anybody's got any set design questions about the production, I won't ask them. I'll pass them back on to Anthony.
Hi, my name's Isabella, and I'm the assistant stage manager in the production.
And my name's Bridget Samuel. I'm the stage manager of this production and very excited to work in this amazing theatre.
Bridget, it is an amazing theatre. It's one of the most graceful, large spaces that we have in the country, and it's always a real pleasure sitting in the audience and feeling the story kind of just roll over us beautifully. And I have to say, I've been looking at the photos of this set for quite a while, and it's just a real thrill to see it in here. I'm sorry Ailsa can't be here to see how beautifully it sits, but I can't wait to see the story itself come alive. Now, I'm just going to ask a little bit of a poll. Who's actually seen a production of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf before? Yeah, great. So one of the extraordinary things about putting a classic on is that your audience is divided between people who are very familiar with the story and people who've never seen it before. And so it's this beautiful alchemy between knowledge and surprise. And one of the things that we can do with classics is play with them a bit, to a certain extent. I mean, Edward Albee is not with us anymore, but he's got a very strong estate. And I know that all of the actors had to be approved by the estate because they're very protective of his legacy and his intent. So sometimes it can be tricky dealing with estates, but not in this particular case. Again, the argument that Margaret made for the version of the play is obviously absolutely his words. There's no change in the script in that way. But a concept can shift the meaning. And the argument made by Margaret, as one of Australia's extraordinary directors, was enough to sway them to actually make an exception in this particular case that hadn't necessarily happened before. So it's a very exciting journey that we're all going to go on that is only possible with our classics, insofar as testing ideas and seeing how they travel across time. I always think there's a bit of a time travel that happens when you sit in the audience and you hear words from 40, 50 years ago, and you're going to go, does that still apply, does it not? We travel back in time to who we were then, and then we come back to now and see what it means for our future as well. We weigh the plays up, we weigh the ideas up, and it's a real, it's a measuring of our humanity and ideas of progress and change. And I suppose that's my first question. I'm going to fling it right to you, Jimmy, just because you're right next to me. You drew the short straw. But George is one of the great roles on the planet. What happened to you as an actor when, the call comes through, hey, Jimmy, do you want to play George in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Margaret's directing. What happened? Oh, you can have your own. Come on, bring it over.
Yeah, look, it was such a, when Margaret asked me, I've worked with Margaret before in my first ever introduction into the industry in a remote area nurse, a TV series that was up in the Torres Straits, and we played siblings with Susie Porter playing the lead, and that was my first experience in coming into the industry and seeing Margaret Harvey, a professional actress on set, just telling stories, with the torture on the background, being represented, in the mainstream industry was just blown away from me. And, I was like, man, if this Horseshoe woman can be in a mainstream telling stories, man, I can do that too. So for one, Margaret Harvey, was one of my inspiration to get into the industry, and she pushed me to go. That's when I went over to WAPA and study, and then became a professional actor, and the rest is history. But when Margaret Harvey asked me that she was gonna direct a show, and she wants me to play a character in it, I just said yes, because it's Margaret Harvey. But then she said it's a classical play called Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and I'm like, where do I know that play from? Oh, it's a film. It's one of the most famous films in the history of films, and first of all, it was a pressure, but you know what? Really talking about her vision, what she wanted to do. I set it in Australia. Similar to how Lee Lewis directed us in Our Town, having an American play and sort of set it within our sort of language. And
how do the plays speak to us, and how do we meet the plays? Like, I grew up with the only way you were sort of allowed in theatre to do works was to do it in a mimicry of that culture. You had to do an American accent or a British accent, and that's what our theatre industry was founded on. And extraordinary careers have been built in that transformative tradition of mimicking other people and other cultures. But it's a real pleasure to be in a time when artists and audiences are willing to bring it into our own voice and see what that means. It's not as fixed, but we know it deeply, and we can judge in different ways. It's a different relationship, and it's quite a fun time.
Absolutely, and just having that connection within George, Martha, having guests over at dinner. Don't we all have that? You know what I mean? And what happens? Within a house or an apartment for over 4 hours, and what happens? It is so relevant today. And just actually backing you up, Lee, and saying that, and to answer your question too as well. Coming into it and really researching this mammoth of a show, you can only bring yourself. I can only speak on behalf of myself, but I'm sure you have to bring yourself and your experience, your life experience into this, and the writing and the play actually allows you to do that. It stands the test of time, and it's actually really universal, and I tell you what, it is such a pleasure as an actor to really attack, a character like George, with the message that, or just the language he speaks, and it's just a fun time, yeah.
Now, it's that funny thing, isn't it? If we played it in American, say, there's this funny bit that sits in our body as an audience where we go, oh God, Americans. And we use the play to judge another culture. When we bring it into our own language, we start to kind of go, does it sit with us? Is the accusation inside Albee's play, are the critiques of people or of a culture? And we start to feel implicated. We start to think of our own dinner parties as opposed to, I'm just not going to go out to dinner with people in America. No, and I'm simplifying it for the sake of a fun time tonight. But that question about finding the play within, Susan Pryor.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've always enjoyed your performances, Susan, in the way you have a unique gift for pulling a story into you and animating it in such a believable way that I kind of go, when I heard it was you, we had this very funny conversation, because casting in COVID times is quite difficult. There's a lot of extraordinary film and television work on offer to people, and all of the theatre companies are really aware that you could lose someone at any time to Steven Spielberg. I'm not kidding. There are big works that are being done here, and who's going to say no? Steven Spielberg calls, please. And we are very happy for all those actors who are getting those opportunities, yes. But I was like, can we make sure it's Susan? And it was this funny thing of going, I was so excited to see what you made of Martha. But I have a question for you as an Australian woman, what it is to take on board all of the judgments of a different time and make it live here. What is that challenge?
I guess with every role that I embark on, I do try transpose it into my own life. So I don't want to just play it. I want to be it. So look, I'm a much shyer person than Martha. And sometimes it's just like, I'll just come out of my shell to play her, and she's just so huge. But in everyone there is a Martha. In every single one of us there is a Martha. No, I think what's been interesting about this project is the people that are involved, and how generous everyone is to each other. And when I go out on stage, I see eyes. I see eyes, and I see love. And even though at times this play can be extremely harsh, if you can transpose it with love, I feel that it goes straight into the bloodstream of the audience. And personally, I'm not interested in a superficial scenario in life or on stage. I want the chemistry of the audience to be changed. I want us to have a spiritual connection, and I actually did the American version when I was really, really young, and I played Honey. And so this is like a big deal for me to have come from playing the ingenue to playing like this monster, and I feel very proud that throughout my career that I've built my strengths to such a degree. But in the end, whatever play you do, it is the people involved, and I know that I can trust every single person here, and I can look over and they're there, and we're working together, and we're connecting, and that's what it's all about. Yeah.
Now, I'm just going to do a little leapfrog over Anthony and come to you, Anita, because you're playing what I would consider one of the hardest roles in the canon to actually bring forward into a contemporary space, because there's so much dumped on Honey, right? Yeah. And she has to making those politics live now and be human. When you first encountered the role of Honey, what were your thoughts as a young, strong, independent woman?
Terrified. No, I remember getting the call asking me to send in a tape to audition. And I've read the text, I've seen productions, I was familiar with it. And I read it to prep for the audition, and for the first time in my life, I know, as a woman of color, I didn't realize until I read it to prep for myself, I was like, oh my God, this could be me. And there were particular things that were jumping out of the script that I'd never seen before. And that was, I don't want to say life-changing, but it was a lot. There were particular lines, particular things said about her that I either went, well, that's not me, but that's interesting because my experience of growing up in this Australia, I've had those things said about me before, or around me in reference to me or my culture, which was so interesting that something written in the 60s in America is still speaking to my experience as a person of color. I had a big conversation with Margaret during rehearsals as well, and we sat down and we went, okay, we have a big task, because we didn't want to just make her the one in the corner that gets thrown around by the rest of them. We wanted to really have her as someone that is affected by everyone, that has a connection with everyone. So I think that was our biggest thing. And I think for me, my biggest challenge was less about, okay, well, this is the thing she says and this is what she does. It was those moments where I'm not speaking, that I can go, okay, well, I'm not saying anything, but I'm here and I'm engaging with that person. And I'm absorbing what that other person is saying. And even though I'm not saying anything in return, I'm still here. And I think that's the most important thing for me as this character in this version of this play.
Now, Rashidi, I'm going to cast everybody's minds back to the poster for this play, which is a great dancing moment. And I was fortunate enough to be there when we were trying to capture the energy of what this production is. And obviously there's a difference before you can get a photo of the actual actors. When we put together a season brochure, and especially at the moment, I was saying with casting, and casting a long way out, it's really hard at the moment. So a lot of our images are not necessarily like a real representation of the energy of the play. Anyway, I called Margaret and I said, I need to capture something of the play. Where are you headed with the production? And she was like, just get them dancing. And he said, you'll find the energy if you just get Martha and Nick dancing together. And I was like, oh. And it's kind of like talking to a director, you kind of get to see inside their mind at that particular point. And I love that. But obviously, it's not just your dancing skill that you're here for. But that question of age and distance and separation, and that question of the conversation between, the territorial conversation between you and George, and that place of Martha in between. What surprised you about the script?
A lot, actually, a lot. I remember when I was auditioning, and Margaret mentioned the fact that, with Nick, he wanted someone of an African background. I was a little bit intrigued, and hence I had a few questions and ask her why would you want that, and if that's the case, who was the person that was cast before I was? And I remember her mentioning the fact that she had changed her vision since the previous person who was originally casted to me being casted, and the new vision was the fact that she is trying to reflect Australia as it is today, and that is mixed with these people from all type of backgrounds. And the thing that I found even more interesting was the way she was describing George and Nick's relationship, like an African migrant who comes to this country where and meets an Aboriginal man who's been teaching at this university, who knows this place more than anyone, but also is working under a white man. And there is this whole hierarchy set up, and in order for me to get somewhere, so there is a lot. So as a black man, when you see another black man somewhere, there is an instant connection. Literally, we don't even have to say anything. We can just look at each other and nod. There is a moment, even in the play, just as the big, when Nick and Honey enters, we look at each other, and we nod. And we didn't even talk about it it just happened. That moment just happened. I don't know if you know the moment I'm talking about, Bala. It happened, and that's a black moment. It's with black people, So let me get back on track. In order for Nick to go anywhere in a place, he has to ask him, what's the goal around here? What do I have to do? What are the places? That's the right way to go about it, but that doesn't happen in this play. I mean, in the scene that you get to see on this night, that doesn't happen. But that conflict was Margaret's idea, to see that fight between them two. This person who should be in his wings, in his hands, willing to learn from him. Okay. Am I giving? No. Amount? Yeah. Yeah, he happens to go the other way around and become a competition other than his. Exactly. I don't know if that landed. Gee, that was a lot, wasn't it?
No, guys, look, it's this funny thing. When you come together as a group of theatre lovers on a night like this, it's impossible to talk for Edward Albee. He gives you these extraordinary lines, and then I say to you, what do you think about this? That's the beauty of acting. You get given these great lines. He expresses things far better than we can. And in the extraordinary challenge of a relocation of a story, I absolutely trust that his writing is a container that will hold all humans and will survive whatever the bends of time and place that we put into it. We're not testing Edward Albee, we're testing ourselves. And it's a great challenge, but it's sort of impossible to talk about it, right? Because he's got the biggest of human and humane conversations on this stage in the intimacy of a house and people who know each other and where a conversation goes. You don't really have to talk about it. I'm just asking you to, and you're being very lovely in talking about it. Because, this group of people it's the beating heart of the company. the people who love theatre enough to turn up on I don't even know what night of the week it is, and talk about a play as we anticipate the journey that we're going to go on. But it's always lovely to actually meet the actors who are up for the challenge and the creators who make the new vision for a play that, no, it doesn't need a new vision, but it will afford us one, and it can contain our new vision, and it can challenge us in ways that perhaps new plays don't challenge us, or they challenge us in different ways. So thank you for the attempt to articulate that space. No, that space.
Anytime.
But seriously, almost every single night, and as we go on, we're just learning so much. We're learning about this play, we're inhabiting, we're growing it every single night. It's not dead theatre, it's different every night. And that's the one thing that bowled me away when I was, playing Honey that first time, is that I'd done so many new Australian plays, and in some ways you have to fix certain things. But this is like an incredible machine. This is like taking a ride on a roller coaster. You get on at the beginning, and you live in the moment, and you live it, and you connect with everyone, and you don't quite know where the bruise is going to land on a particular night. Do you know what I mean? You don't know quite when you're going to cry, or quite when you're going to laugh your bum off. You don't quite know, and that is refreshing. And Margaret has sort of, not many directors have said this to me, but I really believe in this way of working, is that when you feel comfortable, change it. Change it and make it fresh. And she actually said that, and she's one of only a handful of people that I've worked with, but that's how I believe it should be anyway. You work so hard, we all work so hard to inhabit this, to make it fluent, but when we get on that ride together, we just live in the moment, and that's why it's electrifying, and that's why in moments in South Australia and in Sydney, the audience were just silent. They were silent in a crackling kind of anticipation way. Oh my God, what is going to happen? There's something quite dangerous, and it's very exciting. And I just can't say enough good things about Margaret Harvey. She's intuitive, and she's highly intelligent, and she's really hardworking, and she's made her career.
So, Anthony, jumping back a little bit, Susan said the word roller coaster, and that exists inside this play, yes, but it also exists in this production, and you've been on quite a ride with it. Welcome to Brisbane from the stress of both the Sydney and Adelaide space.
Yeah.
When this opened in Sydney, it was at the beginning of the post-Christmas Omicron panic of what will happen, how will we manage. And across the festival, there were shows closing, not being able to go on because of sickness, infection, proximity, all of that sort of stuff. You've been the point person for getting this on stage. What has your roller coaster been like?
It's been very hectic. And it has been, look, the stage management team have been incredible too, Bridget and Isabella, and everyone has, they've done way more than me. But we've all had to kind of come together, I think, and link arms. Not literally, but, link
At
arms.
1.5 metres, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think we all wanted to honour what Margaret had put her heart and soul into. Sometimes classics can feel really airtight and like you can't touch them, and it is incredible, just picking up on what Susan and Jimmy and everyone have been saying, it's incredible how fluid and free this production feels within all of that. The performances are so incredible and so electric, and the show was rehearsed, twice. We rehearsed it once, and then it didn't go up the first time, and then we came back and rehearsed it again, which is when I got to attach myself to the production. And there's a lot of work here and a lot of love and a lot of heart and a lot of soul. And it's a really incredible, fresh, new lens. It's incredible. It's just Margaret, I think, interpreting. I'll try and channel Margaret. But it's Margaret kind of just interpreting the play through her own experience of Australia. So it's an incredibly specific lens in that sense. It feels like we should have seen something like this ages ago, and yet it still feels incredibly current. Anyway, we all wanted to come together for Margaret, really, I think, in her absence.
So Nigel, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, had you lit productions of it before?
No, I've never done this play before. And,
So, Margaret Harvey says to you, so I want to bring it to now. What did that mean for you in a design space?
Well, look, I always think that my principal role as a lighting designer is to facilitate the audience's view of the performers and to help you see the performers. That's the first thing that I have to do. And my feeling about lighting has always been, and very much intensified working on this particular production, is that the most important area of lighting is the light that happens between the two actors on stage, or the four actors on stage. So how the light feels for the performer on stage and how the performers see other performers on stage is, to me, the critical thing, because that gives the actors the solidity in their performance of real space, and so that in some senses the way that the audience see what's going on stage, for me, is I won't say it's secondary, but the principal focus is visibility amongst the actors. And then the second thing that I try to do with the lighting is to trace the emotional arcs that occur during the course of the play, and to do so in a way that hopefully doesn't draw attention to itself as if it were trying to underline things in the play, but hopefully it just entices the audience deeper into the play as they feel these sort of emotional shifts that are just subtly happening throughout the course of the play. So, and doing a play like this for the first time, you read it, and I've seen productions and of course seen the famous movie, but Margaret's interpretation has been very, very different, and so I really am totally informed by what's happened in the rehearsal studio as Margaret was developing the production, and following that arc as much as anything that's inherent in the Albee text. So, does that sort of answer your question?
Well, of course. Of course. And it's a pleasure to... It's a pleasure to hear all of the artists who wrap around the making of a work, how everybody has to respond with their own specialty, and how that central authorial idea that sits inside a director's concept for a work, how every artist has to meet that with their own intelligence and their own lens as well. Then there are just challenges that a new version of something will throw out. And my question is actually for you, Bridget, sitting at the other end. What are some of the challenges that have been in this production? What's the hardest thing for you in your particular role? Apart from managing all the testing each day.
For me, I think the biggest thing is just making sure that all the cast are actually okay physically, mentally, emotionally. It's actually a really heavy play at times, and I try and remind the cast to de-roll, which is really important, and they're not taking all this angst and everything home. We do have fight stuff in it as well, so we have to, look at intimacy, fight, choreography. So just making sure that those things sort of tick along, those are my big moments, and then all the technical elements just come together.
Unfortunately, crossing the borders is easier now.
Exactly. And I mean, as I said, this theatre's beautiful, like there's space, the flies go up, like it's wonderful.
Now, I'm going to open this up to questions from here. I mean, I can keep going. This is my first chance to actually have a chat with them about what it's been like to work on the play. But if you've got questions, there we go, up the back. Are you talking about the language that was taken out of the early performances and out of the film? Well, just the changes over time. Okay, so it's a question any of you can answer insofar as, has there been any change to language in the play? Or is it the script as...
So in terms of the script, we're not allowed to change any of its content. So everything is spoken exactly how it was written. The only changes we've been given permission to change are any descriptions of Nick. So all of the references to him being blonde, for example, we've changed to sexy or dark. It's mostly sexy.
Said with great respect.
And that's an Albee estate change. So they've actually specified that has to be the word that we change it to. We weren't allowed to decide that for ourselves. They gave us a list of, if it says this, it has to change to that. Other than that, everything is exactly as it was originally written.
Yes.
Benjen.
You've got to have two very different roles.
Yes.
Absolutely almost diametrically opposed as an actor. How do you absorb that as an understudy, first of all? And secondly, my second question is, I heard Michael Caine once say that a great actor has to listen, really listen. Now, as actors, presumably you're fully aware of that, but how do you, night after night after night, actually listen, particularly with something as emotionally, presumably damaging as this play can be?
Okay, I'm going to split the two questions. And did
Yes.
everybody hear the questions, or would you like me to repeat? Okay. All right, so the first one, over to you, Benjen, with the toughest gig in Australian theatre at the moment.
Yeah, it was definitely I was thrown in the deep end. I was brought on quite late. It was probably around December last year. I was hit up to understudy. As Jimmy, I didn't even read the script. All I heard sing was Margaret, Harvey and Jimmy Barney. I was like, done, I'm there. But when I first actually read the script and then to see it come to life by these beautiful actors here and actresses, I was like, how am I going to do this? I'm going to have to be like, what's his name? The guy from Split. Two different personalities. Because when I was rehearsing the lines, it kind of felt like I was going a bit crazy, just especially with the dialogue between Nick and George, just trying to understand both of their intentions within the work and trying to bring that to life and how I would see Benjen as those two characters. So it's been a mental overload for myself, but I was up for the challenge because I just wanted to work with this mob. Does that answer your question?
And this is a fairly new, we're going into a new phase of COVID management, all of the companies. We're all talking amongst each other about how we understudy. It's a lot more common in musical theatre, but musical theatre is usually a lot more known work. Often performers will know the songs already because they've been listening to the record for years. It's harder in theatre, and especially in smaller works. So we're taking it step by step, seeing how we can ensure that the show goes on. So work with us this year. We'll figure it out. And what's been beautiful, though, is the number of actors who've stepped up to the challenges across the country. And there's a beautiful club of people who are understudying at the moment, vastly different roles. There are jokes going on about across some of the bigger shows, of course, as they've got swings in and people are jumping in. And there's a meme going around in New York because no, I can't make it to dinner. I'm going on for Simba tonight. Yeah, so it feels like the theatrical community is coming together to see if we can keep stories being shared. And still, take care of people physically. So thank you, Benjamin, for both the courage and the patience and leaping in on something which is a new venture for all of us. Who wants to leap in on that question of listening? Jimmy?
The structure of the play is 3 acts, and it was really challenging to rehearse. Because it's not scenes, you're not doing scene work, it's pretty much big 3 scenes. And listening in this one is and you got to work extra hard on it. So yes, every single night you have to listen. If you miss, because the way the structure of the lines too as well, it's literally dialogue like, yes, no, yes, you go in there, yeah, it's really punchy. If you miss one line, you got to know where you are. If you miss one line and you start saying the other line, you'll see your fellow actor. No, I won't. But you will just see this eyes go, where are we? Like literally. But yeah, and every night, great Michael Caine is 110%. When you actually listen, magic happens. Magic just happens because you are reacting as opposed to doing or trying to be in control of your movements around. You're actually being in the moment with, Martha and Nick and Honey. And I think we've worked really hard with, us 4 on stage, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, like the listening is crazy, and going back to what Juanita was saying about, she doesn't have that much dialogue, but her attention and listening is amazing. George just has so much dialogues, but just to actually see her listening, it brings out life and freshness to the way you deliver to as well. Yeah, you can add if you want, but yeah,
No, I think you covered it all. Even when you're off stage, you still have to be listening. That's how this show is.
Because this play is like the writing is like you go roller coaster, I go Rolls Royce. Every line is so crafted and pared back from its original, like in that original production, into what is needed. It's every little line is there for a reason. So you miss one, right? Something else has got to be missing somewhere else. But I want to go a little bit deeper into that question of the listening, which may or may not be where you were going. You're listening so intently. There's a lot of extraordinary violence in this play. What is it to actually manage to let that in? Because when you're really listening and it really happens, how do you carry that? Is it different for each of you? Is it a personal process? What things do you put in place for yourselves so that you can listen each night but not actually harm yourselves?
It's like what I was about to call you, Martha. What Susan said earlier is the fact that even in those moments that we do listen, you can, in our eyes, there is still a part of us. That love is still there. Regardless of how violent one might get, but there, we are safe. We trust each other so much, and there is so much love, among us that even when the audience can see a character losing it, but there is control. It's controlled violence. It's controlled chaos, with a lot of love.
And I think on that as well, that is where I do come in and remind them post-show, okay, you need to let those roles go, whether that's a visualization, whether that's, visualizing taking the character off with their costume or having a shower just to wash away all that angst and sorrow. That's sort of my role, to remind them, you need to put that aside now and just be a person that isn't awful.
Yes. Sorry, I just want to add to that too as well. It's you have to leave the character in the dressing room, before you go. You got to respect the character. It's and when we listen to really intently, and when those moments do happen, you actually can feel it. Just to go back to Lee's question, you can feel the attack because the dialogue is so sharp that they are throwing arrows to each other. And you actually feel it. It hits, and we're so blessed to have Bridget to remind us all the time. But yeah, it affects us.
So you're doing this one, and then later in the year, Jimmy, you're going to be coming back and doing Othello for us, mate. Maybe a bit of comedy. Like seriously, what are you doing to yourself? No. Look, it's been wonderful. Like your performance in My Name Is Jimmy, the transformation into our town, seeing Othello up in Cairns late last year, and now George, watching going back to Eddie Marbo on the screen, like watching your growth and evolution as one of our great leading men. It's a really exciting thing to get to see. But I am curious as to where you want to go next. But that's my question, not yours. Yes.
I said that I probably shouldn't speak on Ailsa's behalf. Ailsa, by the way, is not here because she's breastfeeding. How old is he now? 12 weeks max or something like that. So she's been a busy woman. Look, I think from the angle of this auditorium, it might be a little bit hard to tell, and the set is not fully complete. But if I just say that it's a white island surrounded by water, that might give you an idea about the sort of basic metaphor that's underlying the set, and that the walls have the fundamental question of the play on them intricately. And also there is another aspect of the elements on the walls that Ailsa has, and that is that we've preserved and observed Edward Albee's titles for each of the three acts. Each of the acts has a title, and the first act is called Fun and Games, and the second act is called Walpurgisnacht, and the third act is called The Exorcism. And the screens, in my mind, are part of opening up the house. So when we see the house at first, it is closed off from us, and slowly that everything gets stripped away. Yes, there's actually some components of the set that are not on stage at the moment because I'm actually going to be focusing tonight, and we need to be able to get access all over the stage to focus the lights. But there is I guess you could imagine it as a very modern house with some sort of perhaps slightly museum-type references about it. And there are a series of glass walls. We'll call them glass walls. They're not, of course, glass, but there are a series of glass walls that are stripped away during the course of the play. So this front wall is the first to go, and then there's other walls that are within the space that confine the space. It slowly strips away, so that by the end of the scene, the end of Act 3, we're in a totally desolate spare blank space. It's just where everything has been stripped away from it.
One of the things I love when a designer takes me into a black and white space as a director is that I know that the flesh of the actors comes alive, because every piece of colour carries meaning then, and it throws your focus so much onto the bodies of the actors. I mean, it's a big ask always of the actors, because there's nowhere to hide. Colour can sometimes, in your background, can sometimes be a camouflage, and you can but in the space like this, we see every detail, and I think putting the design microscope on this play feels like what she's distilling it down is kind of my initial feeling of it. But the pops of colour when they happen are quite extraordinary, and the sense of skin in a cold black and white space is always so electric for me. So I always get really excited when I see black and white, but that's me.
Yeah, I might just add quickly, just from some conversations that I've had with Margaret, again, I'm just channeling somebody far more brilliant than me, but I think all of the choices, design choices, the colour-conscious casting, as Margaret talks about, they're all kind of doing the same thing, which I think I think Margaret wants to create a really immersive theatre-going experience where you are getting carried away with what you're watching, but she also wants you simultaneously to be studying and thinking about what you're watching the whole time. And so she kind of wants you to be simultaneously drawn in and distanced. You know, it's a non-naturalistic space. When we're in a house, but we're not really in a house, you know. And it's so that you keep redirecting your thoughts the whole time back to that kind of grey area, I guess, in between everything, which is just genius. It's really brilliant. Anyway, yeah.
So tell me, Susan Pryor, what's the experience when people come see it, and everybody sitting in this room is going to come see it sometime in the next 3 weeks? What are they going to go away with?
I think it's going to put reflections on your own life, and I hope that's not too confronting. Because, you know, truth. Yeah. Like a truth factor. Seeing actors that are listening to each other and sending love to each other, and by doing that intently, unlocking the play in a really natural way. This is one of the best sets I've ever been on, strangely enough, and it doesn't feel nearly as exposing as some more blank stages, because we've actually got levels, and we can sit down and we can stand up on things. So it's a really incredible set. It lives. It really does live. Like I was looking at Juanita the other day, and suddenly behind her head was the witch's hat, and it's like wow. The set lives and breathes as much as the words in the play do as well, and I think that's the treat. I think that's the treat for the audience, that honesty.
Well, truth, that seems like a good point to bring the conversation to a close. You know, it's the thing that we come to theatre for, to share some human truths. So I cannot wait to see your performances on stage. But before that's going to happen, we have to do the Lucky Door Prize. That's the thing we're actually all here for. Now, okay, everybody get your things out. I'm going to mess this up. And, oh, gosh. All right, so it can't be those ones. Sorry, E. All right. Okay, Jimmy Varney. Lucky Door Prize, pull one out. And someone is going to win a fabulous prize from Newstead tonight, one of our season sponsors. So that's okay. C9. Who's in C9? Oh, there we go. Excellent. I don't have it to hand to you right this instant, but someone will. Congratulations. Now, Thank you so much for joining us. I mean it from the bottom of my heart when I say I look at faces in this audience who I recognize from show to show. Thank you for being the beating, theatre-loving heart of this company. I love having this conversation with you. I hope that you enjoy this play, this journey that Margaret Harvey is going to take us on. And I hope that you can see that this is the production here is meant as a celebration of great Queensland talent and of her career. She's someone we can all be really proud of. She challenges us. She is incredibly generous as an artist, and I find her work and her body of work incredibly inspiring. I hope you do too, and I can't wait to see you after you've seen the show and we can have a chat about it. Thank you very much.